So today I'm going to share with you my recipe for rum cake, and I've tried a few different versions over the years. I really like this recipe because it doesn't have like a granulated feel to the rum glaze, and it's just a very smooth cake. So I'm starting with 2 cups of just regular flour, and I also have about 1.5 cups of sugar, and then I put 1 box of vanilla pudding, just the dry ingredients, and then about 1 teaspoon of salt and 2 teaspoons or so of baking powder. So I'm just stirring this together with my fingers, and I'm gonna get ready to incorporate the wet ingredients into this, but I just kind of sift it with my fingers because it's a quick way of combining those things. You can use a whisk or a fork if you prefer. So then I'm going to drop 1/2 cup of melted butter and about 1/3 cup of vegetable oil into that mixture, and also 4 whole eggs and 1/2 cup of milk. And I'm going to then just go ahead and beat this. And after I beat it the first time, I'm going to add 1/2 cup of spiced rum. You can use plain rum, doesn't really matter what kind of rum you use. And then a couple teaspoons, 2 to 3 teaspoons of vanilla extract. I also used 1/2 teaspoon of butterscotch flavoring or butterscotch extract as well. That's totally optional, but just kind of make it to your taste as far as the flavors go. So then I greased and floured a Bundt pan and just put all of the batter inside of that. Now, if you want to have nuts on your rum cake, like walnuts or pecans, you can chop those up and just put them in the bottom of the pan. It does help the pan or the cake to release from the pan even better. But Langston doesn't like the texture of nuts, and I know some other kids don't like nuts either. So if you are going to have this for a whole family gathering, sometimes omitting the nuts makes it a little bit more palatable for the picky eaters. So then I just go ahead and bake it for almost a full hour. You want to keep kind of checking on it, but it's baking at 325, and once a toothpick inserted comes out clean, then you know that it's done, and you are ready to start making your rum glaze. So while it's cooling, I just put it on wire racks, keep it in the pan, and then for the rum glaze, I'm adding a little bit of water, like maybe 1/8 cup or so of water, to about 1/2 cup of that melted butter, and then just dumped in 1 cup of sugar. It was like 3/4 cup of white sugar and 1/4 cup of brown sugar, but you can kind of, depending on what sort of sugar you want to use, you can adjust. And then just a little dash of salt. You kind of want to salt it a little bit, not too much, like not more than like 1/2 teaspoon or so of salt. And then dump in 1/2 cup of rum again. So you're using a total cup of rum for this recipe, and just go ahead and kind of whisk it around a little bit, and then you're just going to want to let it bubble. It shouldn't stick to the pan too much. You don't have to constantly stir it. You're going to want to just let it kind of thicken down, and you can see as it bubbles, it starts to bubble a little bit more slowly, and that means it's getting nice and thick. At this point, I'm going to also add about 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract just before I take it off the heat. And then I'm actually using a spaghetti noodle because I don't have a longer toothpick. Sometimes if you do this, it will break. It can break. So be careful if your spaghetti noodle breaks. Usually it'll break at the top surface, so it'll just kind of like bounce off the cake. I've never had one break inside of the cake. But anyways, just poke holes all over the rum cake. You want that glaze to soak in evenly. So once it's kind of thickened about to this level, and you can see that it's going to be a nice, thick syrup to pour over that cake, you can take it off of the heat and pour it over the top of the rum cake. Again, your cake is still in the pan for this part. So this is honestly my favorite part of the whole process because it just seems almost counterintuitive. Like, why are you going to pour this liquid over top of your cake while the cake's still in the pan? But it just really makes the rum cake delicious. So you want that glaze to just soak down into your cake. And it almost seems like it's not possible for the cake to soak up all of this glaze, but it does. Don't worry. And if you want to make even more glaze to actually serve with your rum cake, you can do that as well. So once it's all poured over the top, I'm going to just go ahead and cover that with saran wrap and let it sit overnight. So the next morning, after it's been sitting overnight, to get it out of the pan, if you haven't added the nuts, just take your saran wrap off the top, of course, and then I just like to very carefully set it on a stovetop burner on low, like over top of a little bit of boiling water. Just kind of set the pan in the boiling water over low and let it kind of release. It just melts the glaze a little bit to release it from that pan. You don't want it to stick to the pan. So, and then just pop it upside down over top of a plate and you are done and you have your beautiful rum cake. And of course, it's always a little bit of a surprise when you cut into it to kind of see like how did the syrup glaze kind of soak in. There's usually a part of the rum cake that gets some more of the glaze than another part or whatever, and so it's kind of exciting like to get that piece that has a lot of rum glaze in it. And like I said, if you want to serve it with even more glaze, you can just make a little bit more of the glaze and drizzle that over the top. But it's super delicious, great with coffee, great with tea. I actually love this for breakfast as well as a dessert after dinner. So hope everyone enjoys the rum cake recipe, and let me know your thoughts in the comments, or if you have any suggestions for how to do this better. I'm sure you can make little buntlets if you have little teeny Bundt pans. They definitely would not need to cook for the full hour if that was the case. But anyways, happy holidays and happy rum cake making, and most importantly, eating.